I'm not proud of what I did, but I've never been one to shy away from the truth. I've often told myself that my actions were a result of the circumstances, an experiment of sorts, a temptation too difficult to resist. If you had asked me even a year ago if I would ever cheat on my husband, I would have laughed in your face. I was that woman, the one who believed in "till death do us part," who saw her marriage as the foundation of her life. But somewhere along the way, the cracks began to form, and I didn't even see them until it was too late. I've been married to Mark for almost 7 years. 7 years of comfort, routine, and stability. We bought a house together. We traveled to the places we both dreamed of seeing. We laughed at stupid jokes, spent lazy weekends in bed, and did everything a married couple was supposed to do. But somewhere in that picture-perfect life, I stopped feeling like I was living. I started feeling bored, and I hate admitting it, but that boredom pushed me into the arms of someone else. It all started with the gym. I wasn't out of shape. Not by any means. I wasn't someone who needed to lose weight or get toned, but for some reason, I found myself staring at my reflection one morning, my eyes tracing the soft curve of my stomach, the way my arms were no longer as firm as they used to be. Mark was never the type to call attention to any of this. He didn't comment on my body, and I didn't particularly mind. He loved me, and that was enough. But lately, it wasn't enough for me. I had heard whispers from friends, other women, about how they were getting into fitness, how their gym instructors were not only helping them get fit but also boosting their confidence in ways they hadn't imagined. And there were always the stories. The ones about how these muscle-bound men could give a woman a new experience in the bedroom, if you know what I mean. The thought of that intrigued me in a way I couldn't quite explain. I had always been with Mark, who was a good guy but not exactly someone who got my blood rushing. I loved him, but the passion, well, it faded after a while. So I joined the gym. And that's when I met him. I still remember the first time I saw him, really saw him. He was leading a group fitness class, his shirt tight against a sculpted chest, his arms the size of my thighs, and his jawline could have cut glass. He wasn't just muscular, he was commanding. There was an energy about him, an intensity that made my stomach flutter in a way I hadn't felt in years. He had that presence. The kind of presence that made all the other women in the class laugh a little too loudly at his jokes, hang on to his every word, and stretch a little longer than necessary just to stay in his line of sight. I tried not to stare, but it was hard not to. I remember the first time he spoke to me. It was after a yoga class, one where I was absolutely miserable. I'd only just started, and let's be real, I wasn't the most flexible. But I was determined to get into it, to get fit, and to maybe, just maybe, feel something again. Jake approached me as I was rolling up my mat. "Hey," he said, his voice low and confident. "You did great today. You have a lot of potential." I smiled, the words washing over me. "Thanks. I'm just trying to keep up." He smiled back. "You'll get there. If you ever want some one-on-one time, just let me know. I can show you some tricks to improve." It was a simple offer, but something about the way he said it, so casual yet so loaded with meaning, set off something inside me. My heart skipped a beat. It wasn't just his body that caught my attention. It was his energy, his confidence, the way he made me feel like I mattered. The next few weeks were filled with casual encounters, small talk in the locker room, quick exchanges between sets. At first it was nothing, but each time we talked I felt a little more seen, a little more alive. I found myself daydreaming about him, and as crazy as it sounds, I caught myself imagining what it would be like to be with a man like that. Not just in the gym but outside of it. What would it feel like to have his hands on me, to feel his strength, his power? I know it's wrong to fantasize about someone else when you're married. I know it's a betrayal of sorts, even if nothing physical has happened. But at that moment it didn't feel wrong. It felt like the first spark of excitement I had felt in a long time. And then came the invitation. It was simple. He asked me if I wanted to join him for a smoothie after my workout one day. Just a casual drink, nothing serious. But I couldn't help the way my heart raced when he asked. I told myself it was harmless, just a friendly gesture. But I knew better. Deep down I knew what this could lead to. That evening I found myself walking into the smoothie bar, my pulse quickening with anticipation. He was already there, leaning against the counter, looking every bit as irresistible as I remembered. We exchanged pleasantries, and I could feel the tension between us crackling in the air. It wasn't the innocent energy of a simple conversation. There was something more, something unspoken. As we sat down, I could barely concentrate on what he was saying. My mind kept drifting to his body, his muscles, the way he carried himself with such ease and power. I caught myself looking at him more than once, my gaze lingering a little too long on his chest, his arms. "Are you all right?" he asked, raising an eyebrow as he noticed my distraction. "Yeah," I replied, blinking and snapping myself out of my trance. "Just thinking. You've got a lot on your mind, huh?" His voice was teasing, but there was an underlying seriousness in it. He leaned closer just a bit, and I could smell the subtle hint of his cologne. It was intoxicating. I smiled, but I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I wasn't sure if I was ready for what was about to happen, but I couldn't deny that I wanted it. But before I continue with the rest of my story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more thrilling and daring tales like this one. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. The lines between right and wrong were blurring, and I was beginning to wonder how much longer I could resist. The days after that first encounter with Jake felt like a blur. I found myself waking up earlier than usual, tossing on workout clothes, and heading to the gym even on days I didn't really want to go. I told myself I was just getting into the rhythm of my fitness journey, but deep down I knew it was more than that. I was chasing something, chasing him. It wasn't just his muscles, though I'll admit they were intoxicating. It was the way he moved, the way he commanded attention without even trying. He was confident, secure in a way I hadn't felt in years. And every time I walked into that gym, I felt like I was stepping into a space where I could be someone else. A version of me that didn't have to play the dutiful wife, the one who kept things in check, who kept her emotions bottled up and her desires hidden. Jake made it impossible to hide. Every workout felt like an invitation, a subtle way for him to pull me closer without ever crossing a line. He greeted me with a smile that was just a little too long, a touch on my shoulder when he corrected my form that lingered just a second longer than necessary. I started looking forward to those moments, counting down the minutes until I'd get to see him again. One day, after a particularly intense session with him on the treadmill, we were cooling down together, both of us leaning against the machines, breathing heavily. My skin was flushed, my body slick with sweat, but I didn't feel self-conscious. Not when his gaze lingered on me, appraising, not in a clinical way, but in a way that made my pulse quicken. "Good job today," Jake said, his voice raspy from exertion. "You've got some serious stamina." I laughed, trying to play it off. "Guess it's all that yoga," I said, though I couldn't remember the last time I had done yoga outside of the classes he taught. "I wasn't sure I could keep up with you." His eyes met mine, and for a moment the rest of the gym seemed to fade away, the noise of clanking weights, the chatter of other gym goers, it all disappeared. It was just him and me, suspended in this shared space between us. "You did more than keep up," Jake said, his lips curling into a smirk. "You're holding your own, and that's pretty impressive." I felt a strange flutter in my stomach. Maybe it was the endorphins. Maybe it was just the way he said those words, like he really meant them. I wanted to thank him to deflect the attention, but instead I just smiled, unsure of what to say next. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just about fitness anymore. I wasn't here to work on my body. I was here because Jake made me feel something I hadn't felt in a long time. And every time we spoke, every time his hand brushed mine when he adjusted my form, I felt that electric connection growing. It wasn't just physical. It was psychological. He was unlocking something inside me that I'd kept locked away for years. I tried to shake it off. I told myself I was being ridiculous. I had a husband who loved me, who depended on me. Mark and I had been together for years, and I didn't want to destroy that. But the more I saw Jake, the more I couldn't deny it. I wanted him, and not just in a passing flirtatious way. I wanted him in a way that went deeper, darker. I wanted to know what it felt like to be desired, not just by my husband but by someone else, someone who saw me as more than just a wife. The gym sessions became my escape, my sanctuary. I'd arrive early, hoping to catch Jake alone before the class started. I found excuses to work with him during the sessions, needing his attention, craving the way his eyes followed me as I did each set. And every time he complimented me, my heart raced a little faster. One evening as we were wrapping up, Jake gave me a lingering look, a look that was too intense to ignore. He was standing close, too close, as he explained some adjustments to my posture. "You're doing great," he said again, his lips just inches from my ear. "You're stronger than you think." His breath was warm against my skin, and I felt a heat pool low in my stomach. For a split second I considered pulling away. But instead I stayed there, letting the moment stretch. I wanted this. I wanted him. The desire was growing too strong to resist. "Thanks," I managed, my voice barely a whisper. I knew my heart was pounding, and it probably showed, but I didn't care. At that moment, it felt like he knew exactly what I was feeling, and I was too far gone to pull back. Then, before I could overthink it, Jake grinned. That playful grin of his, the one that always made my stomach flip. "You want to grab a drink after this?" he asked, his voice casual, but there was something else behind it. A question, an invitation. Froze, my mind racing. A drink. It wasn't just a drink, was it? Not with him, not with the way he was looking at me. The air between us was thick with unspoken promises, and for a moment, I was paralyzed by the possibility of what could happen if I said yes. But then the voice of reason, my husband, my marriage, flickered through my mind. Well, couldn't. I wasn't that woman. I wasn't the one who cheated, who betrayed the person she loved. But that's the thing about temptation. It doesn't always come in a form you expect. It doesn't ask for permission. And before I could stop myself, I said the words that would change everything. "Yeah, I'd like that." I can still remember the night it happened. It felt like it was bound to happen, like everything up until that point had been building toward this moment. I never planned on crossing that line. But when I looked back, I can't say I was entirely surprised when I did. It was late in the evening after an intense workout. My body ached in that satisfying way, the kind of soreness that makes you feel alive, like you've really pushed yourself. The gym was quiet. Most people had gone home, and only a few stragglers remained, finishing up their routines. I was walking toward the locker room when Jake caught up to me. He was wearing that sleeveless gym shirt, the one that showed off his arms and those tattoos on his biceps that I'd been staring at for weeks. He flashed me a grin. "You sticking around for some extra training, or are you heading home?" His tone was casual, but I could hear something in it that made my pulse spike. I knew exactly what he was asking, but I wasn't ready for it. Or maybe, just maybe, I was. "I think I've had enough for today," I said, trying to sound cool, though my voice came out a little too breathless. "I'm just going to head out." He nodded but didn't leave. Instead, he lingered there, blocking the entrance to the locker room. His eyes were locked on mine, and for a brief second, I wondered if he could hear the way my heart was pounding in my chest. "You sure?" He took a small step forward, his hand brushing against mine as he shifted his gym bag from one shoulder to the other. "I could help you with some stretches. Your form's been improving, but there are a few tweaks that could make a big difference." I hesitated. The logical part of my brain screamed at me to walk away, to tell him I was fine and go home to my husband, to the life I had built with him. But the other part of me, the part that had been silently craving something more, I wanted to stay. I wanted to see where this could go. I wanted to feel something that would remind me I was still alive, still desirable, still capable of excitement. "All right," I said before I could second-guess myself. "But just a few minutes." I didn't even know why I agreed. Maybe it was his proximity, or maybe I just wanted him to touch me again. I couldn't explain it, but I knew I had to be near him. He led me to a quieter part of the gym, where the lighting was dimmer and the sound of the weights clanking in the background had faded into a soft hum. I stretched, following his guidance, letting him adjust my arms and legs as he whispered instructions to me, his breath warm against my ear. Each touch felt deliberate, lingering just a fraction of a second longer than necessary. His hands brushing my skin with an intimacy that made my breath catch. I could feel my pulse quickening, not just from the workout but from the intensity of his presence. "You've got great form," Jake said, his voice low and smooth. He was standing close now, his body inches from mine. "But your hands, relax a little." I nodded, trying to keep my composure. But the closer he came, the harder it was to concentrate on anything other than the heat radiating between us. His scent, the faint hint of sweat and something musky, made my stomach flutter in a way I didn't know how to handle. I could feel his eyes on me, watching me like I was something he couldn't quite resist. The way he moved so effortlessly around me, close enough that I could feel the heat of his body pressing against mine. It was intoxicating. He placed a hand on my lower back to guide me into a deeper stretch, his fingers brushing against the waistband of my leggings, and the touch was electric. It was like an unspoken invitation, a signal that said we both knew where this was headed. My body tensed, but not out of fear, out of something else, something far more dangerous and thrilling. He stepped even closer, so close that I could feel the warmth of his breath against my neck. His lips brushed lightly against my skin, and it sent a shockwave through me. My eyes fluttered shut for a moment, my mind spinning as the reality of what was happening began to set in. I wanted him. God, I wanted him more than I cared to admit. And then, without thinking, I turned toward him. My hands found their way to his chest, and I could feel the hardness of his muscles beneath his shirt. His hands slid to my waist, pulling me closer, his lips meeting mine in a kiss that was all heat and urgency. I hadn't kissed Mark like this in years. It was everything I had been missing, raw, passionate, and completely out of control. Jake's kiss was everything I hadn't realized I'd been craving. His lips were soft but demanding, as if he'd been waiting for this moment just as long as I had. He slid his hands into my hair, pulling me closer, deepening the kiss. I let out a soft gasp, my body reacting to his touch as though